In the cold silence of a prehistoric night, the survival of an entire group often depended on a figure we rarely talk about: the mothers. Long before written history, before kingdoms or cities, it was mothers who quietly shaped the destiny of humankind. Imagine a small band of hunter-gatherers huddled around a fire. The men might be preparing for a dangerous hunt at dawn, but the true keepers of daily survival were the women cradling children, carrying baskets of roots and berries, and whispering songs that kept fear away in the darkness. These mothers were not simply caregivers. They were the first teachers, healers, and protectors, the unseen architects of human survival. Every day demanded impossible balance. A mother had to gather food while carrying an infant strapped to her body, eyes constantly scanning the trees for predators or rival groups. The choice of which plant was safe to eat, which root had healing properties, or which trail led back to camp was not mere knowledge. It was survival itself, passed from mother to child in a chain stretching thousands of generations. Without these lessons, humanity would have been swallowed by the wilderness. The first spoken words, the first shared myths, even the first sense of safety likely came from a mother's voice calming her child in a world where nothing else was secure. But their role was not only to nurture, they defended. Archaeological clues suggest that in times of danger, mothers stood at the center of the group, clutching infants as others formed protective circles around them. Yet history forgets that mothers themselves were fierce protectors. Imagine the courage required to silence a hungry baby's cries while a saber-toothed predator prowled nearby. Imagine the strength it took to keep moving across endless plains with children clinging to tired shoulders. It was not just the warriors who ensured survival. It was the resilience of mothers who refused to let life slip away.
And beyond protection, they were the first educators. Skills that defined humanity, using a tool, weaving a basket, recognizing animal tracks, were often taught not in grand lessons, but in small moments. A child watching her mother strike a stone to crack open a nut, or seeing her knead clay to carry water, absorbed knowledge that would one day keep her alive. These everyday teachings carried as much weight as any hunt. And so, in quiet acts repeated countless times, mothers built the foundation of human culture. They didn't just keep children alive, they shaped the kind of humans those children would become. What makes the story powerful is how invisible it has been. History books praise warriors, chieftains, and hunters, but rarely the mothers who ensured there were children left to grow into those roles. Their strength was quieter, but no less heroic. It was a strength made of patience, of enduring hunger so their child could eat, of walking one more mile when their legs ached, of never letting despair win. These mothers were the living bridge between fragile infancy and resilient adulthood, the difference between extinction and survival. And when you think about it, every human alive today carries proof of their triumph. Each of us is here because, in some distant past, a mother endured when she could have given up. She shared food she could have kept, shielded a child when she could have fled, remembered which berries saved lives and which brought death. Humanity's survival story is, at its core, a story of mothers who refused to let the world defeat them. This is just the beginning of their story. In Part 2, we'll dive deeper into how these prehistoric mothers shaped community life, forged the bonds of cooperation, and, without ever knowing it, laid the groundwork for civilization itself. But before we continue, tell me, when you imagine these ancient mothers, what part of their struggle moves you the most? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals so you don't miss the second half of this journey into the forgotten heart of human survival. As groups grew larger and survival became even more complex, the influence of mothers extended far beyond their own children. They became the heartbeat of community life. Around small fires and within shelters of stone and hide, it was often the mothers who wove together the fragile fabric of cooperation. While men ventured on risky hunts that might succeed or fail, mothers ensured there was always something to eat. Roots, seeds, fruits, insects, and small animals collected through endless patience. This consistency of food gathering, often overlooked, was what kept groups alive when hunting brought back nothing. And in sharing those meals, mothers taught the earliest lessons of community. Survival was not an individual struggle, but a collective one.
They also created the first social safety nets. When one mother was weak, others stepped in to carry her child, to share milk, to bring food. This practice, found in many early societies, meant no child was left entirely vulnerable. It was an early form of solidarity that became a foundation of human evolution. Children did not just learn from their own mothers, they watched many women, imitating gestures, copying words, absorbing an entire culture through the patient attention of a collective of mothers. In this way, knowledge spread wider and faster, securing the survival of the group as a whole. Even in times of migration, when groups crossed rivers, forests, or freezing plains, mothers were at the center of strategy. They knew which plants grew where, which paths led to water, which areas to avoid. These were not just instincts, they were maps in human memory, carried and repeated through lullabies, stories, and chants. A mother's song to her child might also be a coded reminder of which season certain fruits ripened, or which animals returned with the rains. In their voices, survival was encoded, disguised as comfort, but preserved as knowledge. And then there was the spiritual role. Many archaeologists believe the earliest symbols of art and ritual, small carved figurines of women with rounded bellies and nurturing shapes, were reflections of how central motherhood was to human imagination. To early humans, mothers were more than caretakers. They were seen as life itself, the givers of continuity in a world where death was everywhere. The respect, even reverence for mothers, became the root of traditions and beliefs that echoed for thousands of years in myths, goddesses, and rituals across later civilizations. The sacred idea of fertility and nurturing power began with real women who kept children alive in the harshest of landscapes. But perhaps the most powerful contribution of prehistoric mothers was emotional. They gave humanity its first lessons in empathy. A child who experienced comfort in the arms of a mother grew into an adult who understood care, who recognized the needs of others. That ability to feel for another, to cooperate, to share, was not born in the heat of the hunt, but in the quiet bond between mother and child. In this way, mothers didn't just keep humans alive, they taught humans how to be human. When we trace the long story of our species, it's easy to overlook these women, to imagine survival as battles against beasts or struggles against the elements. But the truth is simpler and more profound. Mothers were the first guardians of humanity, the silent leaders who ensured we endured. Without their resilience, there would be no great hunts, no towering civilizations, no story of us at all. So the next time we picture the prehistoric world, let's not only see the hunters or the fires in the caves, let's see the mothers, bent under the weight of children and baskets, teaching with patience, protecting with fierce love, and building the fragile beginnings of what would one day become our world. Now, I'd love to hear from you. When you think of these prehistoric mothers, what do you feel we owe them in today's world? Share your thoughts in the comments, And if you want more forgotten stories of survival and humanity, make sure to subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals and join me for the next journey into the hidden past.